Sonic Generations is a game you can play, but I already made that video, so instead we're just going to talk about the boss fights and rank them from worst to best. There's no major criteria going on here, it's a matter of do I like the fight or do I hate the fight. That being said, I will be taking a page from Magic Cat and also putting the bosses in tiers instead of just number rankings to give a better idea of how I truly feel about the battles. Anyways, that's enough rambling and that's enough of the intro, let's get on with it. With the worst boss in the game. What a piece of crap. It's not a fight that's going to spoil the whole game for you, but it is just plain tedious to play through. The first phase has you waiting around for him to throw a single punch, then he'll jump and you hit him in the ass for some damage. On hard mode, you gotta do this 4 times, and then we can move on to phase 2. Which doesn't get any better because it's just a waiting game where you have to activate some bombs and then have him punch the bombs, and that's his only attack. Hilariously, the fight's actually considerably easier in hard mode because the bombs are positioned in a much easier to reach location. But it's just not a good fight, and honestly I think it's worse than Time Eater. But hey, on the bright side, at least it's only going up from here. Unfortunately, this game doesn't exactly end on a high note. If I was going off the fight in normal mode, this probably would have been the bottom slot, but hard mode actually does improve the fight somewhat thanks to Time Eater having a significantly increased aggression, which makes it feel more like a proper Supersonic fight instead of just a waiting game, and you actually need to swap between Sonics from time to time to dodge the different attacks he throws out. Unfortunately, this fight is still plagued with a ton of waiting around as you try to catch up to the boss. The time slow does basically nothing, and the entire fight is plagued with both your friends and Eggman never shutting up. I guess the last thing I can say is by the time this fight's over, you're going to dread anything that looks like a homing shot. And now we have the best classic Sonic boss fight in the game, but that's not saying a whole lot. I'm sorry to say, I've never really been that big on classic Sonic in general, not just in this game, but in any of his games. I've tried Mania multiple times, but it's never really clicked. I couldn't get into the older games either. There's nothing bad about them, but there's nothing that I really love either. And that's kind of the same thing with this fight. There's nothing really bad about it, but there's nothing I really love in it. You just kind of hold right and you jump occasionally to dodge his attacks. The most involved is when he breaks off pillars and you have to move left and right a little bit. But at the very least, I can say that dodging his attacks will require an active effort on your part, which is more than I can say for the previous 2 entries, and I can also say the music that accompanies this fight is really good. From a boss that's really simple to a boss that's overly ambitious, Egg Dragoon sports the widest array of attacks in the game as well as the highest HP. Overall, it's the hardest boss in the game by a pretty comfortable margin. Unfortunately, the fight goes on for just far too long, and it'll start to drag. While it may sport the largest moveset out of any boss, you're going to see the same 2 ice attacks over and over again. The arena gives you multiple ways to damage the boss, but more often than not, he'll just zoom away at random, and this fight has you locked into automatically running forward, and you can only really quick step instead of moving left to right naturally. While this should be an amazing dynamic boss fight, it just ends up being repetitive because your reliable hits always come from the same wall jumping attack, and it's another fight where you're going to get sick of the voice clips used on repeat. At least the last phase is cool, even if it is a bit short. Marking a notable step up in quality is the fight with Shadow the Hedgehog. Instead of being split into multiple different phases, the Shadow fight's more like a tug of war where both sides make a mad dash for the power orbs, and will occasionally try to hit each other. If Shadow gets fully powered, you'll have to dodge some Chaos Spheres, but if you get full power, you not only get to play a little mini-game of hitting meteors to launch into Shadow, but are also treated to the song Live and Learn, one of the best songs in the entire series, and 20 years later, it's still great. My only major gripe with this boss fight is that if you know what you're doing, it'll be over in less than 90 seconds, making it one of the shortest fights in the game, but hey, I'll take a good boss that I wish lasted longer over an annoying boss that goes on for far too long any day of the week. I was going back and forth on which of the top 2 bosses I preferred, but ultimately I decided Perfect Chaos would be taking home the silver medal. Not to say this fight is bad. Oh no, it's a top 10 boss in the entire series. The boss, however, plays out more like a level than a standard one-on-one fight, where you'll need to jump over or speed through the destroyed city to reach Perfect Chaos and deal damage. And you're accompanied by Open Your Heart, one of the best songs in the entire series. I also appreciate the multiple routes you can take to reach Perfect Chaos, so the fight has some variety to it. It's also the only boss in the game with checkpoints, which is good, because it leads to my one complaint with this fight: it's a bit too easy to instantly die from falling. But if you're a bit careful, that problem should be mitigated, and you're going to be treated to one of the best bosses of the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. Taking home the gold is, ironically enough, Silver. I went back and forth on if I preferred this fight or Perfect Chaos, but ultimately I decided on Silver since I generally tend to prefer a direct fight over a level. And what a fight it is, as the Psychokinetic Hedgehog will throw every abandoned car in the city at you as an attack. But you can directly counter every attack he throws at you. And with it being one of the last boss fights in the entire game, it does pose a significant challenge. It's a fight that I'll boot up the game from time to time just to fight him again and again. And it's helped by having one of the most ridiculous final phases I've seen in any Sonic boss fight. So I'm more than happy to say Silver is the best boss in Sonic Generations, and not only that, he's also the most improved boss in the entire series. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I don't have an outro, so I'll see you guys next time.